Good afternoon, Zoning Hearing Board. I have a Riley Adams. Is she a panelist or is she speaking on behalf of issue?
She may be the stenographer.
Riley, I just asked you to unmute. If you could tell us if you're here for an issue or if you're here as a stenographer.
Hi, yes, sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. I'm the stenographer.
Okay, I'll bring you into the room as a panelist so you can swear people in.
Oh,
Tessa, you have co-hosting privileges, so you can also bring people in and out as needed if I don't catch it.
Thank you.
We've only got one case today.
Yeah, just the one.
Okay. That was my sound check.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Tessa, Ed, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Because I was on, I saw my face, but my mute button was on, but I couldn't turn it off. But I think that was automatic just by turning it on. I'll explain, Tessa, what happened, what I called you about. I think he has it set.
I see 10 participants. Where are all these
Sign
people?
on each month.
Sorry, Donna, you cut out for a second.
No, I think I know what happened, the trouble I was having logging on. I'll explain later.
Got it.
Ed, I don't know. I know Jeff is on his way. He just spoke to me.
Well, where's our assistant chair?
Selena just got in.
I'm here.
Aha, there she be.
Oh, well. I'm sorry. I'm not on. I had my tonsils taken out recently, so I'm still swollen and recovering. So my picture will be up today.
That's okay.
Selena, are you okay? I didn't hear all that.
Oh, no, I'm fine. I'm just recovering from a tonsillectomy, so I'm not going to come on video today.
Feel better. You guys just have a screen in the upper right-hand corner, or do you have like full screen used up? Okay, it changed. Now it looks normal now. I had the City of Erie logo over much of the screen, but I have it looking normal now.
Here's Johnny.
One of the most famous lines in history, Ed, I bet none of my students would get the joke, and probably half the people watching TV today wouldn't get it.
Well, Don, it just goes to show how old you are. I was researching it.
It's a pretty infamous movie.
Excuse me just a second.
Hello,
Gotcha.
Hi, Jeff.
how's everybody?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Whenever you're ready, we can call the meeting to order.
Oh, wait, Dawn, did you want us to talk after the meeting, or because I heard you asking a question and we didn't answer?
Well, yeah, I guess I should have confirmed. before we go on the record, is that Riley? Is that your name? Riley, you're muted.
Yes.
Riley's muted.
Riley, you're the stenographer today?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, before we go on record, I just want to speak to the board for a moment. Yeah, Selena, I forgot to ask if you got the message. Obviously you did. If it's okay, whoever wants to stay, I have nothing new to report on that issue other than the other board members, offered a couple of ideas that we might discuss, but I don't have any new information. But if you want to stay for a few minutes after the hearing, I'll be more than happy to, after we go off the record.
Okay.
And I'd ask that you leave some time to approve the minutes.
Yeah, I think we can start now. Yeah, Tessa, I didn't mean to stop.
All right, so we're calling the meeting to order. We'll take roll call, please.
We have a roll call of the members. Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Mr. Dawson,
Present.
Ms. King.
Here.
We have 3 members present and we do have a quorum.
Okay, approval of the minutes.
So move.
There a second?
Second.
We have-
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, appeals to be heard. Tessa?
The appeal we have today is appeal number 12245 by Enterprise Rent-A-Car Company of Pittsburgh LLC concerning property located at 1556 West 12th Street. The appellant is seeking a use variance to operate an auto sales establishment in an M1 zoning district. Per section 204.19 of the city zoning ordinance, auto sales is not a permitted use in the M1 zoning district. And today we have Catherine White to present the case.
Catherine?
Hello, I'm sorry. I think I was muted. It took me a minute to find it. Yes, my name is Catherine White. I am the Property Development and Facilities Manager with Enterprise Rent-A-Car for our Western Pennsylvania area.
Could you swear her in, please?
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Ma'am, can you raise your right hand, please?
Yep,
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes, I do.
Thank you.
Proceed.
As we stated in our variance request, we are interested in gaining a presence in the Erie market with it's actually our truck rental division. But our understanding in speaking with Jake Welsh is that does fall into the car sales zoning category with the city of Erie. We have done extensive searches in the market to find an appropriate site that is positioned well for our customers. And again, as we stated, some of the important things for us are proximity to major thoroughfares, certainly proximity to our support services, meaning gasoline and diesel fuel and truck repair facilities, and proximity to our customer base. And the property that we have found through Passport Realty on Green Garden really checks those boxes for us. Also, in speaking with Passport, they have struggled to find an appropriate tenant for this space because it is a rather unique space with a high bay garage that traditionally had been used for a truck type depot or repair type facility. And they've actually indicated that the property has been vacant and or losing money for them because of taxes over the past several years. So it seems to be an ideal match, one, to make the property profitable again, also to avoid having a vacancy of the property.
Ms. White, before we go any further, I just I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to clarify my notes before we go any farther. When you said that you spoke to Jake and he indicated that what you're proposing falls under, and I didn't get that. Did you say car sales or truck rental? I didn't get what you said.
Well, he indicated to us that car and truck rental falls into the car sales bucket as far
Okay.
as zoning with the city.
Okay, that's all I wanted to make sure. I thought that's what you said. And then the other thing that I didn't catch was, who was it that said about the location? I'm taking it you mean the owners of that large commercial property. Who was it that you said
It's
having
it's
trouble
owned,
running it?
and it's Passport Realty, Rubino Realty. I've been
Okay.
dealing with Greg Rubino.
I know that. Thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
You know, we've also done some research about other truck, light and medium duty truck rental companies that are located in the same general vicinity as we are. And we found that there are, I believe, 2 that are within a mile of the site we're looking at, and there's a couple more within a 3-mile radius, which I think speaks to it being the right place for this industry. It puts us close to kind of industrial manufacturing, which is a big customer base for us. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, having that proximity to the major thoroughfares. And we are aware that one of our competitors applied for and received a similar variance to what we're looking for, which leads us to believe that perhaps you also might think that this is inappropriate use for the property.
Where was that variance granted for, and who was it for?
I believe it was the Hertz, and they are, I want to say, like, I don't know their exact address, but I know it's on 12th Street.
West 12th?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody know where that is, Jake? Tessa?
Yes.
What was it, Jeff, that you're asking about? We had a variance request for the old Bucyrus building, but that had to do with an entirely different industry.
Truck rental.
It didn't have anything to do with truck rental. But
No,
that
we have
was
truck rental on West 12th Street.
I can't remember truck. I remember a couple West 12th Street, but not the trucks.
I do, and she's correct.
Where was that, Ed?
Around the Liberty Street area,
Okay.
on the south side of the street there,
Okay.
as you're coming into town.
Okay. Thank you.
Doing well.
Well, we hope to have the same opportunity to do well in the market.
Anything else, Catherine?
I don't think right at the moment, unless any of you have any questions for me. And also on the call is Dwayne Farr, and he is our truck manager who oversees our truck division, so that if you have any operational type questions about his business, he can certainly speak to those as well.
Questions from the board? Ed?
Yes. Is this a long-term lease, ownership, purchase? I'm not sure of.
It will be a lease.
For what length?
Well, we haven't ironed out the details of the lease yet, but typically we do an initial 5-year term and then build in ideally 3 more 5-year renewal options.
I have one more substantive question before we move on, Catherine, Ms. White. In your material, you didn't, not in your testimony, but in your application, the hardship that you mentioned was more for your customer base. Did you want to add anything to that with respect to a hardship for your company as to why this location is unique?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, the property itself is unique and lends itself to being able to affordably get into the market. It has an existing high bay that was intended for truck usage. It has the adjacent acreage that allows for parking of the vehicles, and it gives us that access to the highway. And quite honestly, if we do a truck location in an untapped market, from the standpoint of we don't have a presence yet in the market, it's tough for us to go into that market and say do a ground up building and make that huge investment when we haven't really gotten into that market yet. This allows us the ability to get into the market without the hardship of rent so high that we can't afford to sustain it.
Thank you very much.
Do we
Any other
have
questions?
Do we have someone from Passport that supports this?
Greg Rubino did send a letter that we included as part of our variance application, supporting our use.
Okay. That's it for me.
Selena, any questions?
No question.
Anybody else to speak in favor of? Anybody else to speak in favor of?
Mr. Chairman, I do see 2 hands up in the participants. I'm not sure if they are 2 or 4. I would ask if you are for to leave your hand up, and if you are against, then please put your hand down until the right time is called
And
upon.
if they're going to testify, the stenographer will have to swear them in.
Okay, we did get a message from Ms. Frida Tepfer saying she has questions, not necessarily against. So I will allow her to speak.
This is Freda Tepfer. What do I need to do first?
Get sworn in.
Ma'am, can you raise your right hand for me, please?
I'm doing that.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm.
Thank you.
Okay, Frida, go ahead with your comments.
This is Freda Tepfer, and I live in the Baldwin Park neighborhood. I live on 23rd, just a block and a half from Green Garden. And I see Mr. Tushak is with us now. And as he knows, I have been concerned for at least 6 years about the failure to require the construction of a sidewalk related to this piece of property. Now that there is yet a new use being contemplated and a new variance being sought, it is an appropriate time to ensure that there be a sidewalk put in here. Those of us who live on Green Garden would like to be able to walk from Green Garden to the park. There is a sidewalk that is partially accessible on the other side of the street. However, there's still a power pole blocking access for people who have mobility devices. But if you are going from south to north to south, you want to stay on the same side of the street. There's no sidewalk north of the Bayfront Connector on the west side, nor will there be. We would like to have a sidewalk on this side, and there almost was, and there should be. This is the time to make it happen. Also, I would like to make sure that in the process of looking at this possible variance, that we have consideration for the fact that there's going to be added traffic here, both traffic affecting the pedestrians that are walking on the sidewalk on the other side and trying to cross over from the get-go. Then there's going to be more truck traffic going in and out. This is already a very busy and congested area, and I want to make sure that turning traffic is safely and appropriately managed here.
Let me say this, Freda, that I don't know about the traffic. Those are assumptions on your part. I'm going to ask our solicitor if it's in the powers of the zoning board to condition a variance to put in a sidewalk.
I don't think you have a right to tell me it's conjecture. I live in the neighborhood. I resent that.
Okay, thank you.
To your question, this issue has not been thoroughly researched, but I believe it comes under the category of installing a sidewalk would be a municipal responsibility. In other words, it's the city of Erie who is responsible for installing sidewalks. I don't know how we can make a condition on an application for a variance for something that is not within the control of the applicant.
That's not true. That Mr. Tushak is well aware that the amount of money spent on the refurbishing of that facility should have triggered the construction of the sidewalk at the responsibility of the owner in 2015. And he has kept promising me that they were going to work with the property owner to get a sidewalk in. This is the time to do that. This is the time to leverage that. It is actually not the city's responsibility to construct sidewalks. It's the property owner's responsibility.
All right, I'd like to ask Catherine White a question. Catherine, are you still available?
I am still available.
Catherine, I'm assuming that the property owner, landlord, is going to have to do a build out for you for that building to accommodate your specific needs. Is that a true statement on my behalf?
I'm going to start by saying Mr. Rubino is actually trying to get into the Zoom call and he can't get in. I don't know if somebody could do something to grant him that access because he might be able to answer some of the sidewalk questions, but we certainly will make some improvements to the structure itself. I don't know that we were intending for us to finance any significant site work because obviously we didn't know there was a site work issue here in play. I don't want to speak for the property owner as far as his willingness to invest in that. I think that's something we'd have to discuss,
But I'm assuming that you're going to need a building permit to make any kinds of improvements.
Absolutely.
Okay. So with that said, and it would seem to me that when you or Rubino apply for a building permit, it would then be upon the city to say, hey, there's a sidewalk needed from 12th Street to the Bayfront Highway on the east side of Green Garden. And tell me if I'm wrong from the city's standpoint of view.
If I can speak to that.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
Is there a representative from the city here? Maybe they can enlighten us a little bit.
Would you? Yeah.
Mr.
And would you
Salier?
get sworn in, please?
Right hand.
Right hand, please. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Elaborate for us, please, Jason.
Well, this is John. I'm sitting
You're
in
John,
Jason-
I'm sorry.
I'm sitting in Jason's desk because I couldn't get into my for
What's
some
your name,
reason
John?
it wasn't working.
What's your name so I have it for the report?
John Tushak.
Can you spell that, please?
JONTUSHAK.
And you're with the city engineers?
I'm the city engineer.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, John, elaborate.
Well, Fred is correct. Years ago, are you saying maybe it was about 2015? There were some significant internal renovations done to this property that should have triggered a sidewalk, but typically internal renovations do not trigger the sidewalk. But in this case, because of the dollar amount of it, it should have, and it fell through the crack. And since then, we've been talking about building a sidewalk there, and there's actually insufficient right of way there on the corner of 12th and Green Garden to even build a sidewalk. So I worked with Mr. Rubino a few years back to have him grant the city a sidewalk easement. So the right of way in essence would be wide enough to construct a sidewalk with that sidewalk easement. And to date, we have just never constructed the sidewalk. So I'm going to say if there's any future building permits on that property of any kind, we're going to require that sidewalk be constructed to issue the building permit.
Did he grant you the easement?
It went through city.
Rubino?
I don't know if we ever finally executed it, but it did pass city council. So we made it that far. All we have to do is sign the paperwork. Are you on now, Mr. Rubino? I see your name.
Yes, I am. I think hopefully you can hear me now.
Yes.
We can hear you. Now you need to wait a minute. You need to get sworn in, Mr. Rubino.
Okay, I don't see my own picture here for some reason. I'm not navigating this site very well today, but I have my right hand up.
Okay, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Rubino, as you recall, we talked about a sidewalk easement a few years back, and we made it that far, but we did not construct the sidewalk yet. And then they constructed the sidewalk across the street, so it didn't become as big of an issue, but we need to get that sidewalk constructed.
Well, I guess, John, first things first, I did grant the easement. I don't know why the city didn't record it or whether they did or didn't. But it was my understanding at that time that then in exchange for me granting the easement, the city was going to put that walk in. And as you note, there is a brand new sidewalk on the other side of Green Garden, serves the same exact purpose. So I guess we would rest on that issue regarding the sidewalk. Secondly, of course, there are going to have to be renovations, and we would, of course, take out a building permit for those renovations, whether the tenant constructs them themselves or the landlord does, or we have a third-party contractor do it. In any case, there is going to be a building permit, so I guess we're probably going to have this conversation again. But I'm no lawyer, but I understood that zoning and variances were, not conditioned for those outside things, but that the time that those get addressed is at the time when we apply for a building permit. So I'm sure we're willing to talk to you again, John, and continue to talk to you about it. But at this point, I mean, as you noted, there's already a brand new sidewalk right there on Green Garden that goes all the way from the Bayfront Parkway right to 12th Street. If I can also comment on something Mr. Wagner was talking to Catherine about, on her behalf, I did a complete search both in the MLS and on LoopNet, which Mr. Johnson knows what that system is, and on every other available database to find an alternate location. So what we essentially did is called an alternative site analysis and economic justification. And in this particular case, the hardship is presented because there literally is no other property in the target area anywhere on a state highway or on a major access way that would suffice. There's nothing else available. And of course, that presents a hardship for Catherine. I think she spoke to that a little bit. And the other hardship, of course, is that we don't have any ability to create additional land. I mean, the hardship is that space is limited. And in this particular case, it happens to fit Catherine's company's needs very, very well. And I'm glad to answer any more questions about the issue of hardship.
No, that was very helpful. Thank you. I don't mean to go off track here, but this is an important, I do have a question for Mr. Tushak. So if I understand correctly, there can be an agreement between the city and a private property owner for them to, let's say, put up a sign, or in this case, a sidewalk, something that normally the city would do, but it would have to meet criteria that the city has set up, or I don't want to get too far afield, but I need to know how this process would work. How would a private property owner do something like put in a sidewalk or a curb or something like that that otherwise would be considered a city responsibility?
Well, if I can clarify, at no time did I ever agree to put in the sidewalk. I agreed to help with the setting the grades, et cetera. But by ordinance, the property owners or developers are required to install the sidewalk at our insistence. You know, it's an ordinance that the property owner do that. I was just trying to facilitate at that time and help by offering survey services and grading, et cetera, you know, or technical service, not any physical service. And one of Mr. Rubino's associates was also involved and had access to an excavator, and we were talking about ways to, you know, to expedite and simplify the project. But it's up to the builder, the property owner, developer to build the sidewalk at our insistence. And that's what we intend to do, because it actually fell through the cracks the last time, and it should have been done the last time. And not knowing if they were going to actually need to pull a building permit or use the property as is, we took the opportunity to join this meeting in case there was no building permit, to maybe use this meeting as some leverage to get the sidewalk built. But if in fact there's going to be a building permit, you don't have to worry about it. We'll handle it at the building permit time. And at that time, we will insist that there be a sidewalk there.
Okay, no, your answer was very helpful. It answered my question, at least. If I have anything further, I can talk about it later. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just put a quick note on what John said. If the city wasn't intending to put in the sidewalk, why would they need an easement? It was clearly my understanding. Now, maybe there wasn't a meeting of the minds there because John is an honest guy and he's saying otherwise. But my whole understanding was we give the city an easement. They don't need an easement if I'm just building a sidewalk on my own property. But I guess we'll address that at a later date.
That's not true, buddy.
That's where I need to clarify. We needed the easement because it's a public sidewalk. And if a public sidewalk went on your private property without the easement, then you would face liabilities and things as such, you know. So the reason we needed the easement was to make it a public space and take the liability off of you. And that's maybe where we misunderstood each other. I didn't want the easement because we were going to build it. I wanted the easement to make it a public sidewalk, because it would be going on to private property if we didn't have the easement.
Yeah, fair enough. No argument. I'm sure we'll have to discuss this when I come.
So, let me ask you a question, Mr. Rubino, or Ms. White can answer. To what degree of improvements need to be made to the building for Enterprise to occupy?
Mr. Chairman, there are a multitude of new things that have to happen. New restroom for the staff, several offices built inside the existing shell. So there's going to be plumbing work, there's going to be electrical work, there's going to be construction of offices, a sales area, some additional plumbing is going to be required. And, you know, essentially it's a truck rental operation. So I'm sure everybody has had experience renting from Catherine's competitors at U-Haul or somewhere else. And, you know, they generally have a sales desk and where you pick it up and sign your papers, et cetera. So yes, there's a substantial amount of improvements that have to be made.
So, Mr. Tushak, with that said, Mr. Rubino will have to apply for a building permit. Am I correct?
It sounds that way. I don't issue those permits. They come from code enforcement. But before they issue their permits, they route a slip through us to see if we have any requirements preceding the issuance of their permits. So we will we will say that we need the sidewalk to be installed there, and that'll go right along with the process.
And this
Okay.
is Catherine again. We're fully aware that we will need to pull building permits, and we have every intention to do so.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody else in favor of the variance? Is there anyone else in favor of the variance?
I mean, if I can speak, I would say I'm in favor of the development there for the good of the city. And we're not trying to be obstructionist with these sidewalk demands. It's just something that needs to be done. But hopefully we can get that built and hopefully we'll add this use to this property and go from there.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in favor of the variance? Okay, with none said, is there anyone that wants to speak against the variance? Is there anyone that would like to speak against the variance? Is there anyone that would like to speak against the variance?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I do see Freda's hand up again.
Go ahead, Freda.
I just would like to speak that I want to say that unless there is a strong commitment to ensure that there be traffic engineering review of this proposal, as well as the building permit and construction of a sidewalk, it will not be an acceptable project. It is there are some cases I have seen where traffic engineering is not consulted early enough in the process to ensure that their input is included. So if that were not included, I would be in objection to this project.
Mr. Tushak, you have any comment for Freda?
Not at this time. We're
Okay.
Leanne always reviews any traffic issues, and I don't see it be any different this time.
Okay, well, let me say this, if we don't approve the variance, then there will be no sidewalk, I would assume, because he wouldn't be pulling a building permit. So with that said, I call for the vote.
Here we have a call for the vote. Mr. Dawson?
Based on the difficulty of trying to find a location for a sales place, as the Ms. White has indicated, the hardship that seems to be presented, the issues have been clarified. The limitation of this board is just to address the site itself. The city and all other ordinances up to the city and engineers and so forth. Therefore, I approve.
Ms. King?
I'm going to vote no. I'm not comfortable with the issues of the sidewalk. And although that may not be part of our purview, it is something that we need to be, we need to know confidently that that's actually going to happen. And regardless of whether development goes there, it was told that that sidewalk needed to be put in. And so until that can be done, I cannot support this development.
If I can state once again, I'll say that we will not process the paperwork necessary for the building permits unless the sidewalk is agreed to be installed.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
I vote yes.
By a 2-1 vote, the appeal is approved.
I think that's all that's on our agenda today, unless,
Thanks, Mr. Tushak. I know I kind of, not blindsided you, but asked you a couple of questions you might not have anticipated. I appreciate your help.
Oh, that's fine. And if there's any other questions you're sitting on or you'd like to know, go ahead and ask.
If I need to, the record is now closed with the vote. So if I ever have a question, it would be a collateral matter and I would phone you.
Okay.
It wouldn't be specific for this vote. I just wanted to thank you.
You're welcome.
And on behalf of Enterprise, I'd like to thank you for taking time to hear us out and give us your approval.
you're welcome. Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
So moved.
Aye.
Aye.